Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Self-Centered. I am Remy, and today I have two wonderful guests with me, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Anna, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. This is Hannah Armstrong and co-founder of ArPlans.
My name is Joshua Artist, co-founder of ArPlans.
And thank you guys so much for joining me today. And I kind of wanted to dive into what is our plans and how did this come to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I'll take a swing at this first. So originally it was a brainchild idea Hannah and I had after working together as student leaders at the University of Delaware. We served as chapter and also regional leaders for the National Society of Black Engineers. And during that time, as STEM education advocates, we planned various events from summits, workshops, and even 900-person conferences. And from there, we
Wow.
saw hurdles that other event planners shouldn't have to experience. And we decide to take those hurdles, those problems that we face into our own hands and create a solution for it.
Yeah, so to kind of explore that, we came together. We were always working together. When he was chair, I was co-chair. When I was chair, he was co-chair. So we know had a pretty good working relationship.
Mhm.
So we were like, well, let's try this out. And there was different entrepreneurship programs at our undergrad at University of Delaware that we explored, and that kind of set the pathway for us.
Okay, cool. And so could you tell us a little bit more about your background? I heard the mention of NESB, which is an organization near and dear to my heart as well. But could you tell us a little bit more about like where you guys are now in your careers? Are you working? Are you in grad school?
Yeah, so I just graduated. Well, both of us just graduated this past spring from University of Delaware, and I studied biomedical engineering, and I'm continuing that pathway. And now at University of Pittsburgh, as you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
in the first year for my PhD program in bioengineering.
Cool.
Yeah. Myself, I graduated from University of Delaware, as Hannah just mentioned, with a great degree in computer science. And now I work full time as a technology consultant in data protection and privacy at Protivity.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, it was really great to meet you in your first year, Hannah, at Pitt. And I think something else that is kind of jumping out to me is like you guys started off as like student leaders. So what made you guys want to work together on kind of like a side hustle, if you will, outside of what must already be like very productive, challenging day jobs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll take it back a little bit. Initially, the first time I heard about Nesby is when I came to a meeting and there was an offer to join them to the 48th annual convention. From there, I joined them. We flew all the way to Anaheim, California for my first ever annual convention. I saw all these great and successful Black engineers in the room, and they encouraged me to want to join such an organization as NESB. Luckily enough, or I would say unfortunately, our senior leaders were actually leaving during that time, and there was a gap to fill.
Oh,
And
okay.
Hannah was actually joining and becoming the next president of the National Society of Black Engineers chapter at UD. And she encouraged me to join her as her treasurer. And from there, it was it was a storyline on its own, and that's how we came to today.
Nice. Very cool. And so you guys kind of started off as kind of working together in Nesby, and then this idea came up for our plans. And how were you like sure that you wanted to dive into this? Because, you know, as I'm sure you guys know, Nesby leadership will definitely show you who people are when it comes to working together to bring things to fruition. So, like, what qualities were you looking for to make sure, like, okay, I could go into business with you?
I think it's something that we learned along the way. I mean, we were sophomores when we went to our first convention, and then we were coming back and saying, like, okay, we're the only ones in our year that knows what NSB has to hold. So then we just started working together. And part of that was fundraising money Josh had mentioned that he was a treasurer. So he and I worked hand in hand, going to companies, going to the school, and making sure that they were sending enough money so we could send our students to conferences. And we had the largest attendance that our chapter had ever seen just in our first year working together. So that year too was my first year on the regional board. So the next year, again, kind of told Josh, like, okay, you have to fill this position. We have this opening, like, please, I know you can get the work done. And of course, like things weren't always, things were hard. Like, as you know, being in SB, things are hard. A lot of students, since we were the only one that's been to convention, we were the only ones who really knew what we could get out of it. So we were the only ones really putting that work in. And so, you know, it's kind of late nights. I'm calling Josh and I'm like, look, I have this, I need help. And he's like, you know, you're not supposed to call me after 9 p.m. I'm like, that's too bad. I need your help. And he will take his computer out. So definitely a lot of calls, but I think it was just kind of a relationship that bloomed because both of us had that calling to we want to build our chapter, we want to build our peers. And then eventually got to a point where we're like, okay, now we see our peers working and they're motivated on our own. So why don't we do something, but it's for ourselves, you know? Because a lot of it, all that money that we fundraise, a fraction of it, if anything, we got. So
Right.
we knew there was a problem in the system. We knew that we had the qualities to make some money, but we just never got to put it in our own pockets. So at least for me, that's kind of the buildup. It was just things and opportunity. Opportunity came across.
That's nice. Cool. So it sounds like you guys kind of shared that quality of like hard work and wanting to push something forward. And so how did you guys know that you wanted to go into event planning and working in through those logistics? Because that is a lot, as opposed to like, oh, maybe I'll just kick back and like do something technical because it's already in my wheelhouse and I can spin off of something that I'm already work on. Like, why this niche?
Yeah, that's another great question. So ultimately, it came about as mentioned through our experiences through Nesby. We didn't initially know that we would have to plan events in order to increase our membership and the attendance that we want to gain traction for our organization, but it ultimately came about. So us spending late nights, as Hannah mentioned, putting together those events, communicating with the student centers and making sure that we had the right products and also the right companies in attendance. It took a lot of effort, and we didn't want that effort and also that experience to go to waste. Uh, so we ultimately became event planners, not through our own fruition or through our own choices, but it was an experience gained that definitely uh, remains in our skill set and will
Hmm.
take us forward for a long time. It's really that attention to detail and that organizational logistics piece that the engineering mind
Yeah.
tends to handle. Ultimately, understanding that process and seeing from end to end what needs to be completed to create that successful event.
Yeah. And no matter what event it was, whether it was a conference or a dinner, like an alumni dinner, we were still checking off those same boxes and our headache was always the same. And when we were reflecting and we're like, wait, why is it at this part we're having a hard time, but at this part we're not? Because usually it wasn't the planning that was difficult. If anything, that's the fun part. That's what you look forward to. But it's
Yeah.
everything else in advance where if you don't ask your vendor ahead of time, hey, do you have XYZ? Then the day of, like one day, people had to go and buy some ice, not realizing that we were at a hotel. They had their own ice. You know, it's like, it's
Yeah.
those little things where if you just don't double check your sources, you end up running around like headless chickens. So, that engineering mind that Josh had mentioned, the need for efficiency, that's where it came in. And so that's where our plans kind of came about. It's like, all right, what if we just had a platform where everyone came together? Because for each vendor, we're calling, we're emailing, Googling, um, probably at least five different places, five different businesses to get one answer, you know?
Yeah.
So and that wasn't a problem that we found like through our evidence-based entrepreneurship. We went out, we called people, we interviewed them who's doing this professionally, and they too say that they have to do the same thing. So this is kind of a mush of Josh's experience with coding. I don't do any of that. And then our joint brains of planning to kind of make this transaction a little bit more seamless so you can have time to plan and not worry about where your ice is coming from.
No, awesome. Like it sounds like you're using a lot of those core principles that you learn in those engineering classes, and you're applying them to what most people might not see as an engineering problem. But having that mindset, it sounds like it's really helping you guys get off the ground. And
Mhm.
so something that has been on my mind for a bit, how did you guys come up with the name Our Plans?
That's a great question. We played around with a few different names. Actually, our first name was just Our Solutions, I believe.
Okay,
It really came about with the first two letters of our last names, AR. Uh,
cool.
Yeah.
and it's a play on words, really.
Yeah.
Our plans is really what it is akin to, because we wanted to encompass the whole community of event planning. So whether you're a vendor, an organization, or the planner, we wanted to bring everyone together to create our plans.
Okay. Cool. I like that. I kind of guessed it. I was like looking at y'all's last names and I was like, I wonder if I'm right. But I wanted to ask. Um, so you talked a lot about like having to call around to different vendors and kind of get a sense of what the need was. So how do you guys kind of divide the roles and responsibilities of this undertaking?
A great question.
It's definitely something that we're figuring out. During the summer when, he wasn't working full time, I wasn't in school yet. We had that incubator program, so that was pretty much time I was putting in, he was putting in because we had the time, and then also there was mentorship and some structure to it. So
Mm.
we are putting in 40 hours a week at minimum because we had that structure to build for it. But now it's a little bit more, it's like some days, sometimes a bit more heavier for Josh, sometimes a little bit more heavier for myself. But like right now, we're really trying to grow in the Philly area, and that's where Josh is located. So now I'm a little bit more behind the scenes because I'm not driving to Philly every weekend for events. So so he's going to the networking stuff. But we always make sure to kind of have like clear communication, whether it's expectations. So if I am having a hard week or he's having a hard week, then it's like, okay, one of us will take over on the meetings. But since we have very different schedules, I'm double checking, like, all right, what's coming up? I might have class or I have a seminar. So we're being transparent whenever maybe one is pulling less weight and the other needs them to pull more weight. We're like, hey, look, I need you to put in a couple hours. So it's not consistent at all, but we're always telling each other when we need help. So I think
Yeah,
that
and I,
helps.
I think it's also important to reflect on our experience and also the relationship that we built together. I don't think it would have been as easy to rely on each other if we hadn't come together early on through college and also built our relationship up to this point, which makes it easier to tap on each other's shoulder and say, hey, I need you here, or hey, you're kind of slacking. I need you to pick up the pace here in order to make sure our dreams come true. But it's also amazing to see that relationship flourish as we continue to build something so great together.
Oh, that is awesome. So I hear a lot about like being able to communicate feedback to each other. And, I think to the people that listen to self-centered, a lot of times what comes up is like, how do you communicate with someone something that's constructive, something they may not necessarily want to hear? It's a really important skill, not only just for your personal life, but also as you move into the workforce, as I'm sure you guys already know. So, what do you think is the key to giving and receiving sometimes constructive feedback in any sort of like business partnership?
Yeah, I think number one, in receiving feedback, it's important to listen and understand where the pain points are coming from, not only within the business, but also how it emotionally relates to the person, because they may be putting in a lot of hard work and effort compared to yourself. And you have to realize that when you're building something, it takes or when we're building this together, it as co-founders, it takes 100% of both of us. Depending on the day, depending on the time, it could take 60-40 or 70-30, but you have to be able to put in what you're willing to get out of it. So I think it's important to be able to sit down and listen and understand where you're falling short. But also I think it's important to communicate where you need help, right? As Hannah mentioned, we work together and we're used to balancing our tasks, and that came through building our relationship. But usually we schedule touch points on Sundays actually, and write down our tasks and our to-do list for the weekend, kind of divide it amongst ourselves and see and check in with each other to say, hey, have you done this yet? Hey, what's the progress on this? And that really holds each other accountable through that aspect.
And plus also like if one person's slacking per se, it's usually not in like malice or like, oh, this
Mhm.
person's being lazy because we have both worked with teams where people knew we would get the work done, so they intentionally wouldn't do the work. So they're like, oh, they'll take care of it, so we don't have to worry about that. So we've seen each other in that situation before where we were the person that people just ended up relying on. And that's very exhausting because something that is supposed to be a beautiful experience, something very exciting, you end up almost hating that experience because you didn't have the team there to support you, or you didn't have the people there, bring you water or whatever, just to check on you. And so being that crutch for others is an exhausting experience, and both of us have done that. So we both know that, okay, this person isn't being lazy, but maybe something's going on. And that also helps. So like if something's bothering me, I do this with a lot of my relationships anyways, but like if something's bothering me, I'm just gonna tell you like, hey, by the way, you said something, I didn't really like it,
Yeah.
or whatnot. And I'm not gonna hold it against you. If I do it again, I might take
There's
it
gonna be a problem.
problem, right? But most of the time people don't realize what they're doing. And so Josh has experienced me say my opinion for a lot of years now. And then sometimes he'll listen and he'll be like, all right, I'm gonna call you back. And then he'll get back to me. But I think the core thing is we're used to being other people's crutches. So we already know that it's not laziness that's impacting our productivity. It's something's going on in the background. So we'll just pause for a little bit. We'll see how we can help instead of be like, trying to check each other rather.
Mhm. Oh, that makes sense. I mean, so hearing what you guys said about like having to be the crutch for other people in prior experiences, was there any like apprehension kind of going into business where you're like, I've had this negative experience. I do trust you because, you know, we locked in and we've been here before. We true to this. But how did you guys kind of like ward off any anxiety around working with friends? Because it seems like y'all are really close and you guys have a really great working relationship. And for many people, like it can be scary to go into business with a friend. So, like, were there any worries there?
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. You take this one.
Yeah, I would say initially when I first brought the idea to Hannah, the initial ideation phase, I was like, should I bring it to her? But then I was also thinking, who else would I bring it to, right? Me and her have had this experience together. We've grown together, and really created this partnership and relationship thus far. So why wouldn't I be willing to move forward with her, with this idea and with this plan that we both experienced together? Um, but I think it's often difficult when you reflect on friends, relationships, and experiences that you have in your life to be able to say, who do you trust enough? And being able to trust in Hannah and being able to lean on her as much as she's leaned on me throughout this time has definitely impacted this experience and allowed me to be able to move forward into this place that I'm in right now. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think too, what really spoke volumes is because like this started off a phone call last January. I had a random idea and I was like, the only person I know who could possibly help me with this is Josh. And then eventually he shared it. And so he shared his idea. And the first thing that we did was, all right, let's schedule a meeting. Let's set
Mhm.
time. And we were both showing up in the library, the student centers, and we're just sitting, writing ideas, dreaming of the world. Like, man, we can make so much money.
I know
Not
that's
having a
right.
clue. But really not having a clue of what we knew, what we didn't know. But we just showed up and we started just talking. We would set a whole hour and then an hour go by and he's like, oh wait, I'm late to class. And I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So I think that too is just like it wasn't just a phone call or we randomly ran into each other and we're like, okay, let's figure this out. Like the moment we said, all right, we're gonna do this, we started meeting a minimum of an hour a week. And that has grown to at one point 40 hours a week. And then now it's a little bit slower, where our time is divided, so we're not always meeting. But I would say we probably talk Josh would probably say too much because I'm a yapper, but but we definitely talk a lot each week,
Yes.
just to make sure that we're on the same page. We feel the same way about certain things, and yeah.
Cool. It sounds like there's a lot of intentionality in how you guys interact with each other. And so like how would you describe like your work style and how you guys kind of hopefully they complement each other. I know like sometimes if you have a different work style from someone else, um, it can be a little dicey. But I mean, from what we've already talked about so far, it sounds like you guys are really great at giving each other feedback. So, how do you guys utilize your strengths, weaknesses, and your different work styles to kind of push things forward with our plans?
Mm.
I think a conversation that we have pretty often is how do we want to organize stuff? Where do we want to put information? And I think that gives us a pretty strong framework to say, okay, let's keep our thoughts about this thing over here. These things. And we keep lists. We have this list now going on where we copy and paste and we add in the check mark emoji over and over
Cool.
again. So we try to make sure that where we put information is as consistent as possible. So then that way, whatever I'm thinking about, he could find it. We had like Josh's brain space, Hannah's brain space, where we just put
I
our
love
stuff.
that. That is so cool.
Yeah, so like now it's a little bit merged, because we figured out how we organize. I love colors. Josh does not. So
Okay.
I love
when it
it.
comes to like for my one conference, I had a color code system and Josh would be frank. He's like, this is ugly. What's going on? Like, what is that? And I'm like, just trust the process. Just know everything's there.
Yeah.
So I do use less colors. At least I think so. I don't know. But
Okay. I'm seeing
yeah, just
nodding. So,
yeah. So
Yeah.
we're very, very frank.
And
But
I think another aspect that's important is we're both executors, right? When it
mhm.
comes to those tasks, we really don't sit idly by. We try to get it done as quickly as possible just to make sure that our progress is continuing and moving forward. And that's really what I admire about Hannah, is that she'll have these what she call her brainchild ideas, and they will come to life, and we'll work together to make sure it gets it done. But we'll also come together and sit down during the week to also have a brainstorming session to see, hey, how can we move forward on this idea or this aspect of our business? And that's really how we come together. We're executors, we're doers.
yeah.
Love that. That is awesome. So it sounds like you guys are some go-getters. Sounds like y'all are some tanks getting all of this stuff done. How are you guys balancing this with just normal, regular life? Like y'all are sounding like Superman and Superwoman. Like, how are you guys getting everything done?
I don't know. I'm gonna be so I do not know. Because like he has a full-time job. I'm in grad school. That's a lot of intentional learning. And like for right now, what's nice about, doing this startup is that some of it it's intentional learning, but some of it is just like I have this idea. There's no one to go to see if this is a good idea. So I'm just gonna execute and I'm just
Mm.
gonna keep on doing it. But sometimes it's like, well, this task is really easy. What if I just did this instead of my homework? And so sometimes I have to like force myself to just be like, okay, I'm working where I'm not even gonna have that account open. I'm gonna mute my phone. So I'm zoned in on my work and I'm learning what I need to do. But if I need like an easy win for the day, I'm not being very productive, then that's when his phone starts blowing up. Like this idea, look at this picture. So there's no balance. But I
Mhm.
think I just like to feel accomplished, I guess.
Okay.
So whenever I'm productive and I'm in that mood, I'll crank out some work.
When it comes to balance on my end, with working a 40-hour plus work week schedule, plus our plans is definitely a jam-packed day. But I think a routine has definitely helped me. Going to the gym in the morning, starting on some our plans work before I get started with my work day, going throughout the work day, taking my lunch break, doing some our plans work, and then just continuing it on throughout the day. I think the routines has definitely established me and make sure that things keep going on my to-do list. Besides that, um, I really just work it in throughout my day. It's definitely a jam-packed day, and days are long. Nights sleep is shorter than usual, but
Okay.
the job gets done at the end of the day, which is my favorite part.
And
Nice.
plus, also, like in college, we were always putting in that extra work for other people. Like again, I mentioned earlier, I would be calling Josh late, and he's like, "It's my bedtime." And I'm like, "Too, it's too bad. We need to work on this." But we always lost sleep, lost energy for other missions, other people, for people that either wouldn't or couldn't put the time in to bring about their own opportunities or for other, just build up the community. So like now we are doing it for ourselves. So why wouldn't we lose sleep? Why wouldn't we lose a little bit of
Yeah.
energy? Because we've already proven that we have the capacity to do too much in a day. So that's kind of been something that I had to be reminded of lately by someone else, that they were like, you've already lost all this sleep before, so why don't you just keep doing it for yourself? And I was like, good point.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it sounds like this is worth it compared to like losing sleep for somebody else for something that maybe you're not as invested in. And it sounds like you still find ways, little ways during the day to get in some balance for yourselves. So I want to make sure that the audience really understands what our plans is and what you guys do. So can you dive deeper into like what exactly is our plans and what are y'all trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think first it's important to address the problem, which is what we often saw is that when working as event planners and student leaders, is that there was a lot of going back and forth and having to communicate with different vendors, and those long times and those stressful periods where we had to wait for communication back and before we selected one that may not fit our needs or we are dissatisfied with their services. We want to solve that problem. And what did that look like? It looked like us having to go through Google, having to find limited viable market options, and a lack of transparency when it came to their services versus their amenities that they offered. So ultimately, we came up with our plans, which is what that idea was, which is to bridge the gap between those organizations or where we were working on behalf of and connecting them with the vendors and those service providers and those venues that actually fits their needs. And that looks like matching them with their time, their budget, their location, um, based on those aspects and making sure that we're asking all those questions that need to be answered upfront.
Mhm. And we really harp on transparency, and also execution, right? So in any other business, if you don't like the service, you can get your money back. If you don't like a dress, you can return it. If you don't like the food at a restaurant, they will usually remake it for you or give you a discount on the charge. But in event planning, if you show up to your space and the attendees are there and your space is not set up correctly, too bad. You are going to have to do the event because the people are there. You have to please the people that are coming to the event, and you're still going to pay full price. And something that is kind of a learning curve, especially if you're an amateur event planner, right? If you are asking for AV, so audio and visual,
Hmm.
you're going to assume that they're going to have extension cords for you. Because, of course, that needs
Yeah.
power, but also your laptop needs power. And
Right.
so if you want to plug in your laptop, you're like, oh, wait, they only have just enough spots for the projector and the screen, say, for
Oh,
example, as an example. Another
right.
thing is people forget that catering is not takeout. So who's going to supply the forks, the napkins, stuff like that,
Oh, I never thought
right?
of that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all these like little things. And along the planning process, when you remember, oh, wait, forgot about the plates. We forgot about the forks. A vendor is going to say, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll take care of that for you. And you're like, oh, great. This is phenomenal. They're taking care of it for me. But then you look at your bill and you're like, you never disclosed the price of this, of what this was. And that was the transparency that Josh had mentioned, where amenities are posed as services because they're taking care of it for you. And so for your event, because you didn't get the chance to ask all the questions or they didn't provide all the options available, you end up being between 15 and 20% over budget. And if you're in a nonprofit, actually anywhere, if you're over budget, you're screwed. And if you don't have enough attendees paying enough tickets, then even more so, you're more in the red. So it's a little attention to detail that brings your event together. And if you don't ask all those questions ahead of time, then your planning process is now more egregious because you have to think of, okay, who else do I have to call? Who else do I have to think of? And then the day of your event, if the communication wasn't there, if you're only talking to the manager and then the manager, you didn't have the right tools for the manager to then tell their staff. Now staff is moving around in a weird way that you weren't expecting. Then your attendees is like, why did I pay all this money to come to this event? So it's a multifaceted problem, but it starts from the very beginning. So ArPlans, we will ask all the questions. We, depending on what your sign up support, so what type of support you're asking from us, we will either be there and we connect with the vendors, make sure the contract's negotiated, the fees don't look too crazy. Two, if you hire us for the planning part, we're not going to worry about your presentation, but we'll give you a template. I'll give you, got to pay. Of course, that's the transparency part.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that your tools are there. So no one ever has to wonder, where am I supposed to be? What am I going to have? Because they'll have ArPlans.
That is awesome. And so it sounds like you guys have like options that can fit everyone's needs. So it's not like a one size fits all. Can you talk about like how you kind of came up with that idea? It almost sounds kind of modular, how you guys approach this problem solving.
Yeah, so ultimately, we wanted to be personable to whoever we're working with. We had the experience working with nonprofits and also working as consultants for organizations, right? But we wanted to be able to fit their needs depending on what they're asking for, which is why, as Hannah mentioned, we came up with our pricing selection, which is based on the scale or tier of the event. So whether it's a small lunch and learn, summit, or even a conference, we want to be able to tailor those aspects or your needs specifically to what you're looking for. Another part or another piece of that is also what Hannah did not mention is what we're looking to build is our platform, right? And that looks like listing vendors, service providers, venues on the platform and specifically having their service offerings and their amenities listed readily available for those event planners or those organizations that may be looking for those options as needed.
Okay.
And we're looking to have everyone on that platform. So maybe you have a small mom and pop coffee shop and you're only open till 2 o'clock each day. Well, you still have tons of time in the day where someone can rent in your spot for a little gathering with their friends. Photographers, of course, we would love to have the top photographers in the city, wherever you are, but maybe you can't afford that. But we're connected with the college students who have a nice side gig who are photographers.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
anywhere in between, we're looking to provide those business options, but you'll be satisfied with your event.
Yeah, so one aspect that we really want to harp on is when it comes to the planning process, where we specifically help those planners is the sourcing aspect. So Hannah briefly touched on it, but when it comes to the planning timeline and when you're reaching out, you're sourcing those vendors or searching for them, you're conversating and making sure that you have the right inquiries and quotes. We help all along that process, right? So we reach out for you. We ask those detailed questions based on what your needs are for your event, and we specifically connect with them based on the intention that you're holding for your vision behind your event. From there, we go on to the vendor process, which Hannah is going to mention, and we guide you through that process as well.
We want to have a wide array of vendors. So that's going to be your caterers, photographers, lighting, everything in between that supports an event. We want you on our platform because for an event planner, this would be the one-stop shop. And we don't want to just cater to those big businesses. It would be ideal for us to have Hilton, have Marriott, things like that. But what we want people to do is to celebrate within the community, not just staying in the community, but being part of the community when they are bringing people for, if we get to support a large conference again, and we're bringing people across the states, it would be nice if they get to taste the food that's local to Philly or local to Chicago or something like that, instead of them just getting those traditional catering that they're getting through that hotel at a venue that you could find anywhere else in the city or anywhere else in the States, excuse me. So we are looking for those small businesses as well. And part of that is we want to consult and help you build your profile to make sure that you have all the answers ready for when we come and say, okay, look, planner, you should be asking XYZ. But as a vendor, you already have everything prepared. Something that we're really going to harp on is preparing packages. So for a small dinner, we'll say, okay, make sure you already have your pricing set out for appetizers and hors d'oeuvres, but then maybe you'll have appetizers like a 3-course meal, dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and dessert. So if you can have those packages set already where you make sure you have one vegan, one gluten-free option already, then you already have half of the search process. Because as a planner, it's really kind of annoying and tedious to go through an entire menu and have to pick stuff out. But if you go to them and say, okay, look, we already have all these dietary restrictions built in, then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, why would I not just choose that one? Or usually we'll stay away from pork. Like, okay, maybe have at least a couple more non-pork meat options because that's usually a dietary restriction for a lot of
Right.
people. So if we can at least give these tips of, hey, make these packages and list out everything else that comes into support, then it's much easier. And, we would like them to be able to put pictures and so people know what business they're interacting with. But really, anywhere in between, if you don't feel prepared to be able to do this, to, have those conversations, we'll help you with that. Another thing that we haven't really mentioned about the platform is there's availability. So they'll have to upload their calendars. So when people book, they're only reaching out about days that the vendor already said that they're available. The second thing is we want to keep conversation space all within ArPlans. So you don't have to worry about the planners calling, emailing, texting you, but you go on the platform. This event that we already know you're free for, this is where that conversation's happening. You can choose there. But the third one is reviews. You have to know, just like in a relationship, for business, you have to know what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. Right now, for vendors, if you're doing something large scale, the only reviews you see is what the vendors choose to put out there. And we want to harp on transparency. So we're going to have a questionnaire that we have our planners complete where the vendors will get to read and really learn, okay, how are we doing? Could we do better in these areas? And that will be public. So unfortunately, if something went bad, people would know about that, but we would hope that that'll encourage excellence for the next event because everything's a learning experience. And we want to be part of that learning and guiding that.
Wow, really cool.
Thanks.
So for the planners, we really want to make sure that you have the access and also tools that you need to be able to plan your event. So that begins for us, one, as consultants, we work with you hand in hand throughout the planning process, beginning at the sourcing and searching. That comes with us providing you a checklist and also making sure that you have the location, the time that you expect and date, the budget and amount of attendees in mind to make sure that you exactly find the vendors and service providers you need to curate your event. On the second aspect, which is our platform, we provide a search box for you to input these needs in. From there, you're directly matched to these vendors that are able to fit your needs, and you're also able to see the amenities and also services, transparency through pricing, and also reviews, as mentioned, to be able to fill what you need for your event. On the consulting aspect for planners, we also walk with you hand in hand through the logistics piece. As Hannah mentioned, we have a questionnaire for you to walk through to be able to see exactly what questions that you need to answer for your event, whether that's making sure that you have the right amount of ice, making sure that labor is also included within the bill, or also that you're not being overcharged at the end of the day. We provide a negotiation aspect so you're actually be able to fit your budget for your event, and your event is planned to your vision.
And something we keep bouncing back and forth, we keep saying platform consulting, platform consulting.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason why we're saying that is because our platform, we're looking to build up our vendors, build up everyone, but we don't want to stop that from helping you. So the consulting, that's like you'll come to us and we'll help you with all your vendors. But as we're doing that search and onboarding process, those people that you work with for the first event, with us, we're going to be onboarding them onto the platform. So maybe you want to use them again, and then you can just go online instead of having to call and text us about it. So we're working in parallel. So as we build up our vendors, we're also supporting our planners. So then that way there's no dead time in regards to figuring out, are they in business? Are they not in business? I see they got a cool website, which it is cool, but I don't see a lot of vendors on there. So that's why we keep bouncing between of saying that because we're still looking to build up that community that we would like to provide you.
Mhm.
Really cool. Awesome. So it sounds like you guys have thought about pretty much every facet of the event planning process and how someone might want to take an idea for an event and bring it to fruition. And you guys brought up a lot of things that even I didn't even think about. Like, oh yeah, like if I'm getting catering, I would hope y'all would bring some forks because what you expect me to eat with my hands? I mean, some foods you do eat with your hands, but I would like a fork if I so wanted to choose. So that's really cool. So something that I'm kind of wondering is you guys have learned a lot about the business that you guys are in. What do you guys think is like the biggest barrier to people having successful events go off? Because I mean, if you've seen like any sort of Real Housewives, anything, there's always some last minute snafu. And it's kind of like, dang, like, aren't y'all multimillionaires? And this is what you put together? So, what would you say is the biggest barrier to people having a kind of stress-free big event go off without a hitch?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, man.
Well, I was going to say, oh, we might have two different takes. For me, I would say not having all the tools that you thought you had, but then also not working with the people that you should be working with.
Mm,
So part of this vetting process and the support that we provide with planning is when we talk to a vendor, we ask, okay, who's coming on the floor to you at an event? If you have all your caterers, they're handing out stuff. Maybe a planner only wants people in a certain space, but you're talking to the manager the entire time. Is the manager going to be there? And if they're not, maybe you shouldn't be talking to them, right? So kind of giving those pinpoints to the vendors of saying, hey, this is how you should provide information. But if you don't have a manager that knows how to communicate, or again doesn't have the tools to, then that's where things fall short. If think about every time you go into your bag and you forget you had your chapstick. It's like, man, now my day's ruined because
yeah.
my lips are chapped all day. We we don't want you to have that event. So I think it really comes down to the tools that you have to communicate and the tools to execute, and then the people who's using them. But usually people aren't trying to do a bad job for the most part. That kind of goes back to early in the conversation. Most of the time, people are trying their best, but they just don't have everything to execute. So really the part is the tools. Yeah, I guess if I could summarize, not everyone has the tools for it.
Okay.
You hit it on the nose.
Yeah. And that's where you guys come in because y'all got the tools, the platform, the consulting, everything, it sounds like. Um, and so kind of off of that, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you all have learned throughout this process of ideating, bringing things together, pitching the idea to people? What is the biggest lesson you guys have learned, not just in event planning, but in starting a business?
Number one lesson is definitely patience. You're not going to see the results overnight. Of course, we want to see tomorrow we made $1 million off our platform and uh, $200,000 off our consulting, but ultimately everything takes time. We're building with a purpose, so every step that we're taking has to be intentional. Whether that's the specific processes that we're trying to complete in our businesses or the next tools that we're trying to implement on our platform, everything has to be intentional in order to reach the goals that we're trying to reach.
Cool.
And I would say for me, it's two things. One is that a solution is not a pathway to make money. That was something that was repeated to us over and over and over again. To be an entrepreneur, you find a pathway to make money. You don't create a solution to just a problem. So that's I think that phrase says it all in itself. And the second thing is knowing our value. We are used to working for free. And so now we're getting clients, or we're proposing ourselves to clients, but maybe they don't know how much our time is really worth. And so every opportunity is a good opportunity, but we are still trying to figure out, like, should we really tell them the price, or do we do a discount, or how do we balance that? And because now we don't have a parent to go to, a teacher, a coach, or something like that. We have some mentors, right? But at the end of the day, they're like, you guys need to decide figure out your decision and just move with it. And we're like, so you're not gonna tell us the answer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like knowing our worth when it comes to how we're telling people that we're charging, knowing our worth when it comes to making a decision, and also knowing our worth when it comes to just leading ourselves. We are really debating on, do we make a board of advisors right now? Should we? And then we're like, are we doing this just because we want, like, people to report to, or are we doing this because we actually need advisement in this formality? So yeah, pathway to make money for me, and then also knowing our worth in different capacities.
Now, I would say those are really great lessons. I think patience is certainly very relevant right now, especially when we think about our generation and younger. We're so used to things happening so instantly, especially with the platform of TikTok. People see one TikTok and they're like, oh, I'm gonna get on there, make a little TikTok, $1 million tomorrow. And,
Yes.
and that's not how it works. So I'm really glad that you guys can, speak to that. I was wondering if you guys could dig deeper into the pathway to make money, because I think that's something that my listeners will really appreciate. And it definitely really struck me because I think as an engineer, we're so solutions oriented. Like, oh, problem, I got the answer. I have the answer. But what does a pathway to making money mean, and what does that look like, and what does it mean to y'all?
I think what's really important throughout our summer founders incubator, we really understood that method to make money, which was through the evidence-based entrepreneurship. One of our really great mentors during that time, Vince, took us throughout that process, and his whole point was to interview the people who have these problems, right? Understand what they're facing and turn that into a method to make money.
Mm,
So make sure that the problem that you have is also being faced by the people who are in this industry who may be also facing this problem, and create the business model based on that problem.
Because people, they want their problem solved quickly. And something Vince would always say is that trouble loves misery loves company, excuse me.
mhm.
So people in this one environment, right? Maybe they're all complaining about the same thing to each other, like, man, I just wish this could be fixed. I mean, think about it. Whenever we go to our friends, we're all complaining together. So
Yeah.
if we could find one person in that group that's complaining, and then we listen, we say, well, how would you fix it? How much would you pay for this?
Mhm.
They're going to give us they gave us the answers. They told us, this is what I would love to see. This is how it would work. And we would come up with the idea, and then we would do that problem interview, just only ask them. We wouldn't tell them our solution. We wouldn't tell them, oh, our plans could do X, Y, Z. We would ask them, how would you fix it? What is wrong with the process? How do you go about things? And then afterwards, we go back and say, okay, we came up with a solution. Now, do you like it? Do you not like it? And then we keep tinkering. We are still tinkering. So, like, as we have people come onto the platform, we're asking them, did you run into something that was weird? What do you like? What do you don't like? Because if it's a big enough problem, if it's taking enough time, then they'll fix it. They'll pay for it. So that's really what we learned. And we got that from Vince. And it's funny, when we first started working with him, he was like, I'm gonna love this. I love talking to engineers because they just think if they make something, it's gonna work. They're gonna make so much money. False. Like, he would laugh about it all the time. So I'll come to him and be like, you're being an engineer again. You're not being an entrepreneur. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means yet, but I guess I'll figure it out. And now I think I'm close. I think we're both closer to figuring that out. But that's really it. A problem that people will pay to fix.
I see. And so you mentioned Vince. Is Vince a mentor, someone you met through the incubator program?
Yes, so he was the lead professor of the incubator program and one of our greatest mentors that we've met up to this point.
That's
Yeah, and this was through University of Delaware, the Horn Entrepreneurship Program. And
cool.
I looked it up just to make sure I got his position correct. The senior instructor of entrepreneurship.
Cool. And so, on the note of mentorship, how how would you say mentorship has impacted your ability to get things running and how you guys move and how you guys interact with each other?
A lot, a
Yeah.
lot. Our one of our other big mentors is Gary Johnson the third. This
Mhm.
guy, his quote that he likes to introduce himself with, he's a serial entrepreneur, and the only thing he's not selling is cereal. But yeah, he has started up a couple different businesses, nonprofits, and things like that. And so we had a call last week. He's super available, especially someone else, Abu. These people they met us as a pair. So when they think of Josh, they think of me. When they think of me, they think of Josh. So they got to meet us at the very beginning of our program, and whenever we're getting frustrated, they can relate to us, which is really great. So we don't feel that we're going crazy. But the best thing is that they empower us. Gary's always telling us, stand on business, know your price, know your worth.
Mm,
And that's sometimes what we really need to hear. And they're available.
Mhm.
that is awesome. And so, we kind of talked a lot about like your journey through entrepreneurship, the lessons that you've learned, and all of the stuff that you guys do, which is super cool. Um, what would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced in balancing friendship and business?
Um,
Oh,
no, the biggest challenge is definitely knowing your part, right? I think even reflecting back on the question that you asked earlier, which was how do you navigate conflict and knowing your role in the situation? You really have to, I think at the beginning, when Hannah and I were going through this and having to understand what was our roles throughout this process, we would actually, when making decisions, we would play rock, paper, scissors, shoot to decide on the
It
issue,
worked like
right?
a charm. And we
very
carried
Literally,
that
and
objective.
it did
as
work.
we
It
go
did
back.
work, right? But I think when working as business partners and also as friends, you have to know when to put your pride aside and understand what's the best for your business versus what's the best for our relationship, right?
Mm,
So the business has its own challenges, its own problems, right? But we also want to make sure that we're still making sure that we have a good relationship with one another because that plays into the factors of our business and how we move forward as individuals.
awesome. That is great. And so, on the note of like putting your pride aside, that takes a lot of maturity and knowing yourself a lot to be able to say, like, okay, I can step outside of this situation and kind of look objectively from the outside in and see, okay, maybe I need to step back and let things progress as they should, or let somebody else who may have a different skill set handle this. So I think that's like something really important, especially when we think about people in our age group who have all these great ideas, who want to start these businesses, and maybe one of the biggest challenges isn't the lack of motivation or lack of need. Sometimes you get in your own way. And so it's really great to hear that you guys can kind of do that self-reflection and kind of in real time be like, okay, maybe I could dial it back, which is great to hear. Um, and so, kind of like rounding things out, what would you guys say you want your legacy to be of this business, of your collaboration, however the kind of road leads you? What do you want people to walk away with, let's say 10, 20 years from now? I know, very deep philosophical question.
Yes.
Yeah. I something that we keep saying is the one-stop shop to celebrate, the one-stop shop to bring people together, but celebrating in your communities. We really want to support uh, POC-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and we don't want to just give them opportunities. We want to make sure that they're prepared for them. And I think it would just be beautiful to know that if you could throw an entire event Black owned, you could do an entire event Latino owned, whatever community that you reside in, and you want to find your people because you've never been to Philly before, but I don't know, really want some great tamales. Like
Mm.
you shouldn't have to go, really find word of mouth who to get that from. I think that would be really great. And also, I think in our communities, it's pretty common when people cater food, right? They'll cater food, but it's, on a down low, just connecting with their communities. But what if they knew, okay, maybe I could put myself up here, but uh, I don't know if, like, maybe I need an LLC. We're not going to file that for you, but maybe we can say, hey, by the way, these are the things that you will need documentation wise. So that way you really could conduct business on here. So I think for me, it would be nice to know that 10 years down the road, you can connect with a community that's your own, but you're new to, and be comfortable and not be undermined on whatever side of that communication you sit as a planner, a vendor, or anything in between.
Wow. I love that idea of community. Josh, did you want to add something to that?
Yes. I think another stepping stone outside of making sure that we're amplifying the voices of small businesses and also those vendors that we seek to serve is also, changing up the game and trying to revolutionize event planning, right?
Mhm.
So it's often a hard industry to get into just because of that lack of transparency that we mentioned earlier and
Right.
just a lot of niches and sort of complications that you might run into. We want to be able to streamline that process and make sure that everyone has equity in the event planning industry. So no matter who wants to get into it can have the tools and access right in their hands.
That's awesome. I think that's really great. And, I think that kind of harkens back to that idea of community. I really like that example of like, I'm looking for, someone that's going to, cater food that is reminiscent of home for
Mhm.
me. And so kind of, could you talk about how the idea kind of fits into your business? I like for me, I'm half Trinidadian, half Nigerian, and like our food, sacred. So I'm not catering, no, I'm not catering like chicken breast and broccoli for
Mhm.
any event that I'm trying to do. I'm looking for some West African, West Indian food.
Mhm.
So like how has community and like the idea of allowing people to find who they want and need for their events, how is that kind of filtered into your business?
Yes, I think a primary aspect of that is also integrated within our platform and also how we search through our consulting practice, right? So through our platform, one of the features that we envision adding is also the categorization process of those vendors. So whether you're woman-owned, Black business, Hispanic owned, we want to be able to have that be an aspect of your business because it's already ingrained in what you've built up to be thus far. So those event planners who are looking for it can find it right at the touch of a button, right? So that's one of the aspects.
And so, is there anything else that you want to share with my audience? Any lessons learned, advice for people who might be thinking about starting up a business of their own?
I have two things. Do you want to go
Please.
first?
After you,
I
please.
was going to say, an LLC is not going to start a business. Uh,
Mm,
you should practice, have a couple tries of what you think your business will look like before you actually get that LLC. Because there's, you're going to have a tax code. You're putting something down with your social security number. So you want to make sure that it at least works a little bit. So maybe you're not doing it for free, but maybe you can say, all right, I'll charge just a couple $100s to do, or a fraction of what you would imagine this to what your business imagines to be. just to give it a try. I would say that's the first thing. And the second thing is you literally cannot do this alone.
Mhm.
We love the hustle culture, grinding, working so hard. You're going to do that regardless. No matter what you do, you're going to be struggling. But why do it alone when you could lean on someone?
Mhm.
So really think about the people that you're around. People show their true colors. So if you think you can change someone along the process, maybe that's not the person to go to, because no one's going to become the person you want in any capacity. Friendship, business partner, really, whatever type of partner, you can't change people.
Mhm.
So really think about, have you had a good argument where you can't came out of it? It's like, oh, it kind of sucked, but I'm glad we had it. If you've had maybe toxic arguments, then don't have that be your business partner. So those are my two tidbits. Don't LLCs do not create business. And the second thing is people show their true colors. So really understand who they are before you say, all right, let's do this. But you should find someone or people to work with.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I think two things I will add is one is no matter where you are in your journey, you're inspiring someone else, right? You may not understand it or it may not be directly seen, but you may be inspiring someone in your circle, outside of your circle, within your family. I know personally, I've inspired some of my family members, some of my friends to want to chase after their own goals, and it's attainable, right? You have to put in the work, the effort to get there, but it's those small incremental steps that count. It's getting up early in the morning so that you can actually do a little bit more work before you actually start your full-time job or trying something new, getting outside of your comfort zone. It really matters and it does change things as long as you stick with it. Another thing that I do want to mention is that for everyone who's listening, if you're a vendor, service provider, DJ, caterer, photographer, AV, we want to be able to feature you on our platform. Our whole marketability aspect is for you, right? Um, so make sure that you come and swing by arplans.co. That's arplans.co. And we'd love to be able
CEO.
We'd love to feature you on our website. Sign up, get in contact with us, and we'll help you throughout that process.
Awesome. I am so grateful for you guys coming on and joining us today. And to my audience, I hope that you guys picked up some great tidbits. There was a lot in here. And um, be sure to tune in to the full episode on Spotify. And you can always catch us on TikTok and Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.